Welcome to Rolling for My Shades, where every Wednesday I let the dice decide which shades I'll play with, and I create a look, and I bring you guys along for the ride. First, we will roll a d6 to see how many shades we'll be playing with today, and we got a 6. Now we roll a d6 to see which palette our first shade will come from, and we got palette number 4. Because the Titanium Foxes Crying by the Horse palette has 15 shades, we roll a d20 and that gives us a 4. The fourth shade in this palette is Alazon. To see which palette the second shade will come from, we roll the d6 again and we get 5. The Expedition to the M81 Galaxy palette has 9 shades, so we will be rolling a d10. We rolled a d10 and we ended up getting a 1. It took me a little bit to figure out what was happening there though. The first shade in this palette is Galaxy, which is a rich magenta. And then we roll a d6 to see which palette the third shade will come from, and we got a 6 instead. Because I don't own 6 eyeshadow palettes, 6 decided that we will use lashes. We rolled a d4 to determine which style of lashes, and we got a 4. There are not 4 styles of lashes, and I was excited to use the lashes, so we rolled again, and we got a 2, when the 2 would be the style Office Iron. We rolled a d6 to see which palette the fourth shade would come from, and we got a 3. The Natasha Denona Mini Starlet palette has 5 shades, so we rolled a d6 again, and we got a 5. The fifth shade in this palette is called Per Se. I tried to swatch it once and it barely showed up, so I went in again to swatch it a second time. And then I gave up. Then we rolled a d6 to see which palette the fifth shade would come from, and we got 1. There are 16 shades in this palette, so we went ahead and rolled a d20, and we got a 5. The fifth shade is the light bright purple shade Skeleton that we used last week too. Now it was time to roll a d6 to figure out the palette for our final shade, and we rolled a 6, but we already had lashes selected, so we went ahead and re-rolled this. We could have also nullified it, but we re-rolled and we got 1. We just rolled for this palette the last shade, so we know that we'll be rolling a d20. We went ahead and rolled the d20 and we got an 18. There are not 18 shades in this palette, so we could have nullified it, but we did decide to roll again. When we rolled again, we ended up rolling a 6. The sixth shade in this palette is Zombie, which is this pretty metallic light purple color. So this is the color story we are working with today. It is a lot more fun than last week. The first thing I went in to do was map out my inner and outer details because I knew I wanted to do those in this bright magenta. Went in and decided to just clean up the edges to make it a little bit sharper just with my finger, because I knew I can with this formula. Here we connected the look to the bottom lash line because at this point I knew I wanted to keep it clear. Now we go in with that Per Se shade, because the Natasha Denona formula I have decided is probably the least favorite of the ones that I own. So it felt like a good bet to just have this as my bridge shade from the magenta to the light purple that I'll have in the center. And now we went in with the light, bright, brightening shade Skeleton from the Little Ghost palette. That's going to make an incredible base for the shimmers we're going to put on. Now it's time for the shimmers, and we start by putting the gorgeous shade from the Titanium Foxes palette just kind of all over the centerpiece there, not being really too careful about where it ends up. I took not really caring where it ended up a little too far, so I cleaned up the edges with the purple brightening shade Skeleton. And now I took the shade Zombie and laid it kind of over where that shade Per Se was, and overlapped it a little bit with the stunning shade from Titanium Foxes. Because I'm using the lashes today, and because I'm relatively new to lashes, I do need at least a subtle liner to kind of hide the lash band. So I went in with my wet liner, the split liner from Glisten in Roulette, and made the smallest little baby wing that I could. The lashes are the last bit of this look, so I took my mascara and went ahead and went in with a coat or two, and then because I am so new to lashes and I did not want to mess them up, I went ahead and applied those lashes off camera. So this is the final look. I really like it. Let me know what you think and if you would have used these colors differently in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next Wednesday. Subscribe if you want to, but you don't have to.